Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. How is everybody? Hope you're doing well. I'm just running some errands today, picking up some hay, which I have in the back of the truck here. So I gotta unload that. Yeah, how is everyone? I have honestly been pretty overwhelmed, and I'm not saying that to cry like a woe is me card by any means. I'm saying that because the point of this video channel is to be real and to talk about the struggles in life and to talk about how we got to be the best versions of ourselves, and we got to live the best versions of our life and be mentally healthy and well and all that stuff in spite of how difficult things can be sometimes. Like with true transparency, like I always try to do on this channel, like things have been a little overwhelming recently. I have set a lot of big goals and visions and dreams for this year, and I've been working really hard at them, from the time I wake up in the morning and start work until like last night. I got done with all of my stuff I had to do for the day around midnight, and the day before that, same thing around midnight. So again, this isn't to like cry woe is me or say I'm the only one that works hard or anything like that. It is just to say that, yeah, I've been a little overwhelmed. I've been a little tired. Um, I've been a little fatigued. And of course, yesterday, in in spite of already feel like I'm, pushing myself to the max to try to get all the things done in the day that I need to get done to, stay on track with everything that I need to do. Of course, as always, when it rains, it pours. I get a message from one of the girls at the barn about one of my horses who has managed, I don't even know how she managed to do this, but in her, shenanigans in the pasture, she managed to get hung up in one of the gate panels. Yeah, this horse right here, my little girl that I've been having on and off issues with for the last 2 years. Like she is really testing me, but she is teaching me so much. And I know that in all these trials and tribulations, I know that there are tons of lessons, and I am becoming such a better person for it. So failure, struggles, disappointment, they're always hard when we're going through them, but they always will make you better if you allow them to. So yes, but this girl, she decided to try to really hurt herself. She got stuck up in the panel of one of the pens in the pasture. Literally, from what was described to me, was dangling from her back hind leg. So this was a very significant injury. I'm so lucky that at least she's putting weight on that leg. At least she's able to stand on it. This could have been, if you own horses or you know anything about horses, you know how lucky I am that she did not break her leg in an incident like this. And that is how quick everything can change. And I know I've said it on this channel before, and working in healthcare for all the years I worked in healthcare, I've seen it with my own two eyes. Life can change in an instant. And everybody says, oh, live every day like it's your last day, and live every moment like it's your last moment. And yes, of course that is true, because we can all be taken from this world in any moment, in any day. So you want to live every day like it's your last. But I'm here to challenge you to go a step further, because it's not just about mortality. It's not just about when we are no longer here on this earth. It's about your world as you knowing it completely changing. And that can happen because the people, the things in your life become completely different. People, the things around you, their health becomes completely different. Society around you becomes completely different. Everything can change. So yesterday for me could have went from, I have two healthy horses that I love and that are working good in the morning, to I now have a horse with a broken leg. Everything can change in an instant, and it doesn't have to be because something happened to you. It can be because something happened to the people around you that you love, the things around you that you care about, the things around you that bring you happiness. It can all change in an instant. So, when you wake up every morning, remember that. Remember not to take for granted anything in your life or the life that you know of and that you have, because it can be altered in a second. This incident got me thinking about pressure release, because I had already been feeling overwhelmed when this happened yesterday. I had already been feeling like I was struggling to keep my head above where I needed to be to, keep checking off all the boxes and doing all the things that I needed to do. And then this happened. I want to talk about that a little bit, because that happens to us in life all the time. Like, we get in these periods where we feel like we're functioning on all cylinders. We feel weighed down. We feel overwhelmed. We feel like we can't take any more on our plate. And then here you go. Here's something else to deal with. And even though it might be a small extra thing to deal with, it just seems completely overwhelming, because we've already hit like our max. We're already at our max and we can't take on anymore. And so I want to talk about that, because that is life. That is what it does to us. That is how it tests us. And I'm here to encourage you and challenge you to bend, but not to break. And I want to talk about pressure and release, because this is the entire premise of training horses. Pressure, release. And I think it's a great way to think about life, and a great way to think about how we respond ourselves to life. So I'm going to grab my horse out of the pasture after I unload all this hay, and we're going to go horseback, because I want to show you exactly what I mean. So we are horseback. It's super windy. Hopefully you guys can hear. But I want to demonstrate this. And if you ride horses or train horses, you know all about this already. But for those of you who don't, it's just a little fun, something new to look at. But everything in horse training is based on pressure release. And what we mean by that is how we train the horses to do what we want them to do. We ask them for something by applying a little bit of pressure. Show you what I mean here. I'm gonna pull up on this rein. There, see how she gave me her head? As soon as you get the response to the pressure, you let go. And that is how you do everything in horse training. Pressure release. You start out really slow, of course, just like this. Perfect. She gave me her head and did a little turnaround. Now she's really sensitive because she's my barrel horse, and she's a good girl, and she really pays attention, and she's very intuitive. So she's a little confused right now because she can tell I'm not really fully attentive, because I'm talking and riding a little weird, and that's why she's kind of like, what's going on? But I'm gonna do it again. Head, and then release. Now when you're starting a horse out, every motion, every response you ask for is going to be very subtle. Like in a horse you're just starting out doing this, you just want them to give you your head. That's all you want. I'll show you again. Pressure, good. You guys can't feel what I'm feeling because you're not horseback, but the point is you want them to go forward through the pressure, but bend to the pressure. So let me see if I can demonstrate it again. So we're walking. I'm gonna pull on this rein. See how she's still walking, but giving him her nose? And that is what we want. You want forward motion in spite of the pressure. And that's what I mean by bend, not break. Because in the horse world, we're gonna start off small. We're gonna start off by asking for very, very subtle movements, very subtle response from them to the pressure. But in the end, we want to get really advanced. Let me see if I can demonstrate this one hand. We want to be able to apply this pressure and have her spin around like that. Now, if you ask for too much too fast, if you take a horse that knows nothing and you ask them to do a full spin around, they're probably going to freak out because they're not going to know what you're asking them. They're going to be very frustrated. They're not going to understand what you're trying to get from them. And it's going to result in a big fight. And it's going to result in them probably filling their heads. It's going to result in them perhaps rearing up. Right here, see? Just, you can tell I have like barely no pressure on that rein. And she's turning with it. Because she is already well trained, she already understands. But if you try to do that with a young horse, they're going to need a lot more pressure before they move. And you're going to have to be very content with very small responses from them to start out with. And then you slowly build. Once they start to learn pressure release, then you can build on it. You can ask for more and more response from them every time you work it, every time you have a training session. The reason I wanted to talk about that is because think about that in your own life. Like when we train these horses, we expect them to understand that when they feel pressure, when we ask them to do something, when they feel that pressure, they're supposed to give to it, they're supposed to respond to it, they're supposed to turn towards it. But often, I think as human beings in our home life, we don't do the greatest job of turning towards pressure. We don't do a great job of bending, not breaking. If I ask this horse to give me her head, and instead of giving me her head, she rears up, she tries to throw me off, we have a big fight, obviously that's a very worse situation than if she would have just given me her head, just like that. We need the horses to think, right? We need them to try to put it together in their brain what we are asking of them when we put pressure on them, when we ask them for something, when we give them a cue. We expect them to be super in tune to that. Yet, as humans in our own lives, I think we sometimes forget to be very in tune to that. Little Miss injury prone. I shouldn't say that. My horses are actually do very well taking care of them themselves. They're fit, they're healthy. I'm very lucky for the most part, and I'm especially lucky that she did not do more damage. Her leg looks a little more swollen today, but that's not unexpected. Now, speaking of pressure and release, I have been doing a lot of stuff with this horse. As you know, we've had some issues over the last couple of years. She had some hoof issues, and then we were off for a while, and then we came back, and then we had some issues and had to go back to some basic training stuff, and I really kind of just started her over like she was just a young horse, like back in her first training sessions. And so I've been doing a lot of groundwork with her. I've been doing a lot of work with pressure and release, as we're talking about. And I'm not going to demonstrate it on her today because obviously she's hurt, so I'm not going to make her do anything, but doing a lot of work with her, making her use her brain, doing just weird stuff like looping the lead line around her leg and pulling on it and making her understand that how to give that kind of pressure, or putting something weird on her back, like a bag of like weights and having it fall off of her saddle while she's in forward motion, and making her figure out how to respond to that. Just weird things like that. But the point of that is to teach them, like I was talking about a minute ago, is to teach them to use their brains when they get in a situation where they feel exactly like how we feel, when they feel overwhelmed, when they feel stressed out, when they feel like they're being pulled in a direction that they don't understand, or they feel like they have just too much on their plate to handle mentally. When they feel like that, the challenge is to get this animal, this wild animal, to, instead of freaking out, instead of like fighting, instead of trying to run away, instead of trying to muscle against their trainer, which they can easily do because they're of course bigger and stronger than us, instead of that, the goal is to get them to use their brain, use their mind, and say, okay, how do I navigate this pressure situation? How do I interpret what this pressure wants me to do, what it is trying to get me to do, and then how do I respond to it so the pressure goes away? Or how do I respond to it so I can still move forward in spite of the pressure, still move forward with the pressure? And guys, that's it. Like, think about those words and then take them and put them in your life. It's not about horses. I mean, it is about horses, but it's not about horses. That is the secret to our success too. That is the secret to us moving forward, growing, evolving, learning, adapting, getting better in spite of the pressure that life throws our way. Now, I bring it up specifically for this horse because yesterday with her incident where she got her leg caught in the panel. Now, she was dangling. This is not the fence that she was on, of course, but it'll do for height purposes. But her back leg was basically stuck on top of a rail that was about that height, and her back end was essentially dangling from her leg, and her hoof was caught in, there it is over there, you can't really see it, but her hoof was caught in the metal gate on the other side, so she was trapped. Now, horses are fight or flight animals, like we've talked about on here before. They're in a bad situation, their first instinct is to flee. If they can't flee, their second instinct is to fight, and they'll start thrashing and kicking and trying to use their power, trying to use their muscle to get themselves out of a situation. Now, I don't have a video of what happened yesterday, nor would I show it on here even if I did, but so it's kind of hard to imagine. But imagine a horse having their leg caught up and suspending their back end on something that they can't get free from without a human being coming and undoing what they're hooked on. That's a pretty detrimental situation. And if the horse decided to go into fight or flight mode, decided to try to run when it realized it couldn't run, instinctually their next response is to muscle their way out of it, power their way out of it, start thrashing, start using every muscle in their body to try to get themselves free. If she would have done that yesterday, she honestly, and I'm not saying this to be morbid, she probably honestly would have broken her leg, and this would have been a detrimental situation. And she didn't do that. She realized she was stuck. She just stopped. She stood there calmly and just waited for somebody to come help her. It was like she understood that instincts of thrashing around and fighting against the pressure and trying to muscle through the pressure was not going to be in her best interest. It's like she understood to use her brain and to think, to critically think and understand that her best way out of that pressure, out of that situation, was to wait on someone to come get her free and to stand there calmly and quietly until that happened, as to not do herself any more damage. And that is a huge deal, and I'm so sorry this happened to her yesterday, and I hope that other than a little swelling and soreness, we're going to be okay. But at least my horse is able to put weight on that leg. At least her leg is not broken. I mean, this could have been so detrimental, and it wasn't, because she decided to use her brain to figure out where the pressure was coming from, what the pressure meant, and what is the best way out of this pressure situation. And I just give her a round of applause for that, because she really helped herself by doing that. And I also think that what we have been doing, me and her together, has been working, because I think she is using her mind more. She is thinking things through more. She's not as reactionary as she used to be. Like, she still has those strong instincts, but she will pause now, and she will think first and critically think about what's happening and how she needs to respond and how she needs to behave. If this horse can do it, and my other horse can do it, and all the horses trained by all the people can do it, human beings, we can do it too. So think about this next time. Think about the story I just told you. Think about the vision of being horseback. Think about these examples next time you feel a mountain of stress on you, next time you feel like you're overwhelmed, next time you feel like you can't take any more and something else gets plopped in your lap, next time you don't know the way out of something or away from something, next time you feel that pressure, I want you to think back to these examples, and I want you to think pressure release. And instead of going into fight or flight mode, instead of getting angry, instead of trying to muscle your way through it, instead of trying to power your way through it by thrashing and kicking and screaming and throwing a temper tantrum, instead of trying to run away from it out of like fear and fight or flight response, I want you to think back to this example. I want you to pause. I want you to engage the critical thinking, logical part of your brain, and I want you to think, and I want you to try to analyze what's causing the pressure, where is the pressure coming from, what is the pressure trying to get me to do, what is in my best interest when it comes to how I respond to this pressure, and how do I bend to the pressure and continue to move forward without breaking underneath of it. All right, we are completely losing daylight. Sun is setting. I want to walking this girl. I want to just let her walk a little bit before she goes back in her stall tonight. Obviously, she's going to be on stall rest for a few days, so I want to just let her get out and walk a little bit. So let me do that before we lose the rest of our sun over there. And yeah, think about this throughout your life, guys. Pressure release. If the horses can do it, we can do it too. All right, we'll talk soon. Bye.